Hello and welcome to another ADM Agriculture YouTube video. I'm joined again today by Sajjad Awan, the company agronomist for CF Fertilisers UK Limited. Good morning, Sajjad.
Morning, Amy.
Thank you very much for joining us today. So we're going to talk about nitrogen fertiliser use efficiency today. Could you start us off by telling us why it's important to plan for our nitrogen fertiliser use?
Oh, absolutely. Nitrogen is actually one of the vital nutrient elements which is required for plant growth, and it is required in large quantity. It is required for plants growth and for dark green color. So the dark green color is actually because of the chlorophyll, and the chlorophyll is required for photosynthesis. That means that the plants require this nitrogen to produce their own food. Nitrogen is also required for nucleic acids, for example DNA, and for protein formation. It induces vigorous growth in plants, and also it is readily available. It is absorbed quite readily by the plants, but the problem is that it can easily leach out as well. And at the harvest, the plants might have about 1 to 4% depending on different crops of the harvested material. So there are two reasons I would say that we should make sure that we plan for our nitrogen fertilization. One, and very important one actually, that nitrogen is the most expensive inputs on a farm, but it is also essential for plant growth. We can't skip it. If we underapply it, that means that we might be reducing our productivity. The yield might go down, and its deficiency can cause seriously restricted plant growth and development. So we don't want to risk it. The second important reason is that if we over-apply nitrogen, it can be actually lost into the environment. For example, in case of ammonia, or it could be leached away as nitrates. Ammonia, as we know, it can travel long distances and it can cause respiratory diseases. Nitrate leaching, it can cause algal blooms, which is harmful for aquatic life. But most importantly, I would say that planning for nitrogen is crucial to comply with the current legislations as well.
Perfect. So what is nitrogen fertiliser use efficiency and how can it be calculated by the farmer?
Yeah, nitrogen fertilizer use efficiency, it is a measure. It's a measure of how well a crop utilizes the bagged fertilizer which you apply. So some fertilizers, they have better fertilizer use efficiencies compared to the others. There is a lot of research done by the CF and several other organizations on fertilizer use efficiency. Calculating it is vital that people, if you want to conduct your own trials, I would say that you should also try to sacrifice maybe a small plot where you're not fertilizing with nitrogen at all. So that would be completely unfertilized plot for nitrogen only. The rest of the fertilizers, they could go as normal. Now, how can you calculate it? So it can be calculated by the formula which is given here on this slide. Essentially what it is that NFU, you can calculate it by taking away the amount of nitrogen removed by the unfertilized crop from the nitrogen removed by the crop in recommended nitrogen fertilizer plot. So you've got one plot which you haven't fertilized, and you've got another plot where you apply the recommended rate. So you take them away. Then this is divided by the recommended level of nitrogen. And finally, to calculate the percentage, what you do is you multiply it with 100. That would give you nitrogen fertilizer use efficiency.
Okay, so are there ways that farmers can improve that nitrogen fertilizer use efficiency once they've worked out how to calculate it?
Absolutely. It is, as I said earlier, it's absolutely essential for farming as a business that we know how much nitrogen should be applied. So I would say that there are 5 steps that could be followed. First of all, you measure. So you should know how much nitrogen should be going in your field. So one of the best ways to measure, I would say, is that you do a CF and min test that would not only give you SMN, soil mineral nitrogen levels, but also provide you information on additionally available nitrogen, which could be even higher than SMN in some cases, especially if you apply manures and slurries. Now, once you measured it, then I would say there are 4 R's. 4 R techniques have been used all around the world. They're quite easy to remember as well. Now, the first R is actually the right source. So different fertilizers, as I said earlier, they've got different fertilizer use efficiency, like urea, like ammonium nitrate in the form of nitram, solids or liquids. So you got to choose the correct source depending on your requirement. The next R is actually right rate. So once you know that this is the amount of nitrogen that is recommended, you got to stick with it. So you shouldn't be doing experiments that, let's see what happens if I apply 20 kilo more or 30 kilo more. So, or 20 kilo less or 30 kilo less. So you got to stick with your recommended rates, because these recommended rates, they come after a lot of calculation, a lot of statistical analysis. Then the third R is the right time. We have seen over and over in most of our trials, it clearly shows that you apply nitrogen when the crop requires it, when crop demands it, then the fertilizer use efficiency is really high. And one of the techniques that we've seen, we call it little and often approach, where you apply your nitrogen in more splits than you would normally do. So if you do 2 or 3 splits, then with little and often, you might be doing 4 or maybe up to 5 splits, so that the nitrogen is not waiting for the plant to be taken up. It doesn't sit there, but just simply quickly utilized by the plant. And finally, the fourth R is the right place. We know that the roots are responsible to take the nutrients and water from the soil. So applying the nutrients or nitrogen in the root zone is absolutely essential to improve the fertilizer use efficiency.
That sounds great. So if farmers are interested in doing this on farm, what can they do?
Absolutely. So on this slide, I've provided a link. So if you want to know more about the trials that we are currently doing, we've got nearly 75 trials this year in the field. On farmers field, we're doing tramline trials. If you want to join in, I've provided the link. I've also provided the phone numbers on this slide and an email address. So you can contact us through several means.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much for your time today, Sajjad. That was really interesting.
Thank you.
So if anyone has any further questions, please speak to your ADM farm trader, or you can use the details at the end of this video to contact us. Thank you, Sajjad.
Thank you.